Notes 3 4s on dividing rational numbers, and the vocabulary to go along with it is multiplicative inverses, which are two numbers whose product is 1. The example is 2/3 times 3/2, which is 1. So if you cross cancel, the 3 would cancel, the 2 would cancel, so you're left with 1 times 1, which is just 1. Reciprocals is the multiplicative inverse of a number. So the reciprocal of 7/16 is 16/7. You can see that the numerator and denominator have been flipped, and if you were to multiply these, the 7s would cancel and the 16s would cancel and be left with 1. Notes 3 4, dividing rational numbers. The objective is divide positive and negative fractions using multiplicative inverses and divide algebraic fractions. The Common Core state standards and mathematical practices are listed. The first thing we're going to do is find the multiplicative inverse of each number. The first one is 3/7, so we're going to flip that fraction, so it's 7/3. Negative 2/5, when you take the multiplicative inverse, it's still negative, but you flip around the numerator and denominator. For number 3, because it is a mixed number, you need to make it an improper fraction first. So 3 times 3 plus 1 to give you 10/3. Now flip it, so it's 3/10. You can see that the numerator and denominator have been flipped. To divide a fraction, you're going to multiply by its multiplicative inverse. It's the same thing as keep, change, flip. That means we keep the first fraction the same, division changes to multiplication, and we flip the second fraction. So for number 1, we have 1/4 divided by 5/6. So it's 1/4 times 6/5. So keep the 1/4 the same, division changes to multiplication, and you flip the 5/6 to 6/5. And you can cross cancel the 4 and the 6 by taking out a 2, so you're left with 2 and 3. Multiply going across, so you're left with 3/10. Number 5 is negative 5/8 divided by 6. We can put the 6/1. So it's negative 5/8 times 1/6. Since we have a negative multiplied by positive, now our answer is going to be negative. We can't cross cancel anything, so we just multiply going across, so it's 5/48. 6 is negative 1 1/5 divided by 2 2/5. Our answer is going to be negative because we have one negative. But since we have mixed numbers, we're going to make those improper fractions. So 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6/5, or negative 6/5, divided by, I'm going to keep it the same. We're going to divide this by 2 times 5 is 10 plus 2 is 12/5. If you notice, it's still in the form of division. Now I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to keep the first fraction the same. Division changes to multiplication, and I flip the second fraction. You can see that the original problem, the 5 is in the denominator in the second fraction. Make sure that you flipped it, so our numerator is now 5. Now we can cross cancel. 5s divided by 5s is 1, and we can take out a 6 from the 6 and 12, so we're left with 1 and 2. There's one negative in the problem, so our answer is negative, and if we multiply going across, we get 1/2, or negative 1/2. Number 7, again, has mixed numbers, 2 negatives that we're dividing, so our answer is going to be positive. And now we're going to rewrite it, so 3 times 4 plus 2 gives you negative 14/3. We're still keeping it in division. We're dividing it by a negative, and 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 is 28/9. So again, we still have those two negatives. We're going to rewrite it, so we're going to keep the first fraction the same. Division changes to multiplication, and we're going to flip the second fraction. So 9 goes to the numerator, and the 28 goes to the denominator. We can cross cancel the 3 with the 9, so we're left with 1 and 3. We can cross cancel the 14 with the 28, so we're left with 1 and 2. When we multiply going across, we get 3 halves, which is the same thing as 1 and 1 half. So our answer is 1 1/2. Now we're dividing algebraic fractions. We're going to find each quotient and write in simplest form. This is similar to what we did with multiplying algebraic fractions, but we have to keep change flip first. So our first fraction stays the same. So 3x over 4 times, change it to multiplication, and then flip 8 over 2x. Now we do the same thing that we did with multiplication. Cross cancel. I'm going to start with my numbers. So 4 becomes a 1, 8 becomes a 2. Can't cross cancel any numbers. I can see that I can cross cancel an x. And looking, I don't see anything else going across, but I do see the 2's up and down, numerator and denominator. So I'm going to cross cancel. The 2 becomes a 1 and the 2 becomes a 1. Make sure when you're cross canceling you can also reduce going up and down. So now we multiply going across. I see I have a 3 times y, so that gives me 3y. And then in the bottom I have 1. I don't need to put my 3y over 1. 3y is just fine. If you want to have 3y over 1, it's the same. Number 2, we have 5x over y divided by 10/16 y. So now it's 5x over 8y times 16y over 10. Cross cancel the 8 with the 16, so you're left with 1 and 2. The 5 and the 10, so you're left with 1 and 2. We can also cross cancel our y, so we're left with 1 and 1. Now I only see that I have in my numerator, I have an x, I have a 2, another 2 in the denominator, so again I can cross cancel. So I can cross cancel, the 2 becomes a 1, the 2 becomes a 1, and when I multiply going across, I am left with x. Now, if you didn't see the 2 over 2, your final answer would have been 2x over 2, and now you can see that the 2's can be reduced. So if you don't cross cancel everything in the problem, just make sure in your final answer that you've cross canceled. So if we missed that, we would have cross canceled and we still would have ended up with x. Number 3, we keep the first fraction the same. Division changes to multiplication and flip the second fraction. Cross cancel your 2's with the 2's. So those becomes 1's. We can cross cancel your b's. We can cross cancel the 5 with the 15 by taking out a 5. We can also cross cancel the a's. So now look over your problem. And I see that I just have a 3 in my numerator and everything else is 1. So when I multiply going across, I'm left with 3. Number 4, we keep. Change, flip. Cross cancel. We can cross cancel the 13 with the 26, so you're left with 1 and 2, and the y's, so you're left with 1's. We can cross cancel the m's. We can cross cancel the 6 with the 10 by taking out a 2, so you are left with 3 and 5. When you multiply going across, I can see we have a 3 left, a 2, an n, and then a 5 in our denominator. So I have 6n over 5. And we're going to leave it improper when we have algebraic fractions. So it's 6n over 5. Our last problem is problem solving. Cassidy feeds her dog Kobe 3 3/4 cups of dog food per day. If she buys a bag of food that contains 165 Cups, how many days will the bag of food last? So we take our total number of cups, divide that by the 3 3/4 cups, and put the 165 over 1. So it's 165 times, make this improper, so this becomes 15 over 4. So we have to keep, change, flip. So that's 14 over 15. We're going to cross cancel. We can take out a 15 from both, so we're left with 1 and 11. And when we multiply going across, we end up with 44. And 44 represents the number of days that it would take Cassidy for that bag of dog food to last. That's the end of the notes on lesson 3-4.